Depth is created by these three things: values, perspective, proportion, and planes. But the key factor here is when you're trying to put depth in a painting, I want you to write this down and remember it so that when you're painting and drawing, you'll be able to formulate your painting with this little plan. Depth is caused by when you put your, I'm talking now about objects in reference to subjects. The closer, the further you recede into your painting, your objects get smaller, closer together, and less intense in color. Those are the three components that make your painting work when you're trying to create depth. Your objects get smaller, closer together, and less intense in color. Now let me make a little, see if I can make some point over here. Let's go back to this painting. As you recede into the distance, each one of these fence posts get a little bit smaller, shorter. They get a little lighter in color, and they get a little bit closer together. If we were to continue way back into the distance, on across, they would be very small. As you can see, they are over here. They're closer together, and they're less intense in color. That creates depth. Same thing with the tree formation. And now don't let this throw you for a loop, but see, each one of these layers of trees gets less intense in color, thus creating depth. Okay? Now they don't necessarily get smaller, although they do. It's just that you may have a hill that's above you, so that makes it look like these are taller, but they are not. The trees actually are smaller. See, here's a tree, maybe that same tree right there, but because it's in the distance, it's smaller. So everything gets smaller, closer together, and less intense in color. All right, now we're going to go to the third type of composition. And then we're going to go into some components of composition that make composition work. We talked about eye stoppers and things like that, but we've got other things that make it work also. The third type of composition is what we call center. Now I just call it that. It may, you can have your own name for it. But that's just where you simply have a subject like a vase of flowers, a bowl of fruit. It's a still life, a portrait, a figure painting, anything. We'll just do something simple. We have a table here, tabletop. We have a bowl of fruit or a vase. Let's use a vase. Now we don't put the vase right smack dab in the middle of the canvas. And I'm going to lightly sketch this on purpose wrong so that you understand what I'm talking about. Because remember what I told you? Negative space is the space around an object that gives it form. Now I just drew this object with lines, but it's not the lines that gives it its form, it's the space around it that gives it its form. If you can ever reverse the thinking in your mind that you're looking at space instead of lines, then your ability to learn to draw and paint become increasingly easier and easier and easier. The space inside here, it's not the line that causes the space, it's the space you actually see there. Okay, so now we have space on each side that's identical in width and depth and height and shape. That's ugly. That's not fun to look at. Let's get rid of it. Move it over. Okay, so now we have unequal, interesting space, but it still doesn't hold our attention very good. So what do we do to correct it? Okay, remember the components of composition. You have your eye stoppers, you've got shadows, you've got things that create and hold you in, and you've got overlapping, you've got to break up your negative space. All right, so now what we've got to do is break up the space. For instance, one good thing might be maybe a window. But look what I did with the window. I overlapped the base. So that makes the space more interesting. Okay, so now we have the window with some window panes. Now it's getting a little more interesting. Our eye is staying a little bit more into the painting. All right, well now we've got all this space over here. What are we going to do with it? Well, let's think about it for a minute. Maybe we ought to have a table that has boards going into it, like this. Well, now wasn't that a clever thought? Now look how quick our eye gets into the painting and stays there. Let's put a bunch of grapes. Well, now, all of a sudden, your line that you were struggling with now has a deterrent. It hits those grapes, pulls you back up into your subject, and pow, you've done the job. Now you come in here and you do the next thing. You say, okay, well, let's have some flowers out of this vase and hanging over here. And be sure they are hanging over. Hang some and let them overlap. You got some that come way up, maybe go way off. Now, You have to also decide maybe this is where the shadow is going to be. The light's coming in from the left-hand side. So you shadow the right side of your vase. There may be a shadow on the floor or on the table. But because you've got this line here and your grapes, everything kind of overlaps and balances. You break up your space and it becomes just wonderful. Now another thing you do when you have a painting like this where it's just all you have is one subject basically, it's always important, and we talked about it on here too, but to darken your corners with shadows. Make sure, like if this were a brick wall or a stucco wall or a wood wall, that you have the warm, soft, darker colors in the corners, and see your eye then stays well within the range that you want it to stay in, because you don't really want to look at anything up here or over here, or you could have a burst of sunlight coming through, I guess. That's okay because your eye would come in. But the important thing is that you focus here and you don't wander anywhere else in the painting, because there's nothing else to look at. You don't want to have paintings on the wall and all kinds of goofy stuff hanging around. You want to have a beautiful eye flow right through. It's kind of an L shape basically, but simply because we don't have a lot of landscape around it, it's not really called that. Don't go away. Jerry will be right back.
Now you can learn the artist skills in the privacy of your home on video cassette tape. Jerry Yarnell, a renowned landscape and wildlife artist, has been instructing over 20 years with an easy-to-follow method. Learn the usage of the acrylic medium at your speed and in your spare time, and review specific highlights at the touch of a button. Get started now. Call 1-800-822-1970 and order your beginner's lesson today for $24.95. Your satisfaction is guaranteed. Call 1-800-822-1970.
I cut my vitamin bill in half, thanks to Puritan's Pride.
I saved over 50% on my vitamin purchase. Shopping with Puritan's Pride is like putting money back in your pocket.
Hundreds of thousands of people are buying their vitamins, minerals, food supplements, and more from the pages of Puritan's Pride. Why? Just look at our fantastic 2-for-1 prices. Imagine getting not one, but 2 bottles of C500 with rose hips, both for just $4.70. 2 for the price of 1. And look, buy 1 bottle of ginseng and get another free. 2 for $6.25.
I bought 1 bottle of lecithin and got another one free. Just $4.65 for 2 bottles.
Buying from Puritan's Pride means you're buying direct from one of America's leading vitamin manufacturers, and one of the largest. We offer a tremendous variety of products. Hundreds of the finest vitamins, minerals, food supplements, and herbs, including the newest products nutritional science has to offer. Puritan's Pride offers you a full money-back guarantee on every purchase. So call now for your free 96-page Puritan's Pride catalog.
Puritan's Pride, the smart way to buy vitamins. I kind of think that you got to just let a kid be a kid.
Bridget Jones and her mom, Barbara.
She gets a favorite outfit. She lives in it. You literally have to peel the clothes off of them sometimes. I had seen this commercial on TV. Oshkosh recommended what to wash it in. They said it could get the stains out and keep colors bright. Washed after wash.
Tide's activated bleaching system is unbeatable at removing many tough stains, while special ingredients help keep cotton colors bright wash after wash.
They weren't kidding.
It's gotta be clean. It's gotta be Tide.
Good thing her little sister likes hand-me-downs. I just love it when I find something that makes baking so much easier. It's Crisco sticks. They're easy to measure. And you keep them in the cupboard, so they're always soft and much easier to blend than butter. They come with lots of great recipes. Like Crisco's Ultimate Chocolate Chip Cookie. It bakes up higher than Toll House cookies made with butter. Stays moister, too. Crisco sticks have butter beat.
For soft, moist cookies, cooks who know. Trust Crisco.
All right, now we're going to move to our next subject here. And this is going to be important. Very, very important. Now we've talked about the various types of composition and why we use them, when we use them, and a little bit about what makes them work. But what I'm really going to talk to you about now is what really makes a painting hold together. All right, let's look at this. And I already know we're not going to have time to cover everything, or we just don't. So, we'll cover it again in another session or two, somewhere down the line. I wanted to get into perspective, but I don't think we're going to have much time for that. But I do want you to understand something about shadows and reflections. Now, this is one of the most two misunderstood parts parts of a composition that there is. All right, let me make a couple of examples. Let's start with shadows. Now, everybody knows what a shadow is, or at least I thought so until I started teaching about 20 years ago. Everyone knows what a reflection is. Same thing. I thought everyone knew what a reflection was. Well, almost invariably, we get them confused or mixed up. The reflections, of course, are things that are reflected into the water, and the shadows are the things that are cast on the ground. There's two types of shadows. There's a cast shadow and a form shadow. Now, let's go over here and make an example. For instance, say I have, well, let me just make a little quick composition. I have a little road going in here and a hill going down here and a hill here and some hills in the background. Okay? Very important components of composition. The cast shadow is the shadow that is cast on the ground. For instance, say we have a fence post here. Okay? The sun's coming in from this direction. There's two important things to remember. The cast shadow is cast on the ground. Okay? The form shadow is the shadow that creates the shape of the object. Okay? The same thing if I had a vase or a pot here. Okay? This is the cast shadow. This is the form shadow. Now your form shadow is usually, some of the questions I get, the form shadow is generally the lighter of the two. This is generally the darker, okay? It's not in every case, but generally this is the lighter. Now a couple things to remember about shadows, really important. Depending on where the sun is located, it has a lot to do with how long the shadow is. Keep in mind that if the sun is up here, coming down, you'll have short shadows. If the sun is over here, your shadows will be longer. So see, that has a lot to do with also how you compose your painting. You've got to decide on what time of the day it is. That has a lot to do with how long your shadows are, which may directly influence how you break up a piece of negative space or create one of the part of your triangle or L-shaped composition. Everything has to fit together. So the next time you go into a museum or an art gallery and you see a beautiful painting, you got to think, all of these things had to be thought out before they ever got started, okay? And this is just a drop in the bucket of what an artist really has to go through to become really good at it. Sure, we can learn all the basics and have a lot of fun, and if that's what you want to do with it and that's where your goal is, that's great. But if you really want to get technical, these are important aspects. So remember, it gets longer the lower the sun sets, shorter the higher the sun is. Now, if it's directly above, shadows are really erratic. It depends on where you're standing. You just can't tell what's going to happen. But say you have a cast shadow here, and it hits a solid object like a building or the side of a building or something like that, and it hits the side of this house here. Well, if the shadow still continues, it's going to go up the side of the house like that. It's not going to go up like this. It's going to angle like that. Now, don't ask me why, okay? But if you look over here on the painting that we've painted in the past few sessions, notice the angle of these shadows on the roof here. I don't know exactly how they got that way. I just know that's the way it was in real life. But you can do one thing. You always can trust the fact that it follows the contour of the land, okay? Which direction it leans up here and how far is really irrelevant, but it has to have some kind of meaning. So study it in nature. That's the best teacher. Mother Nature's your best teacher, okay? So go out and study it. All right, now we've covered the shadows. Now very quickly, I want to go into reflections. Now reflections are real confusing to people because they get them confused with shadows. They get reflections confused with the shadows much more often. Shadows confused with reflections. Let's have another sketch here. Okay, now reflections. Let me make a couple of comparisons here so that you understand. Shadows change with the direction of the sun. Okay? Like I just showed you, the higher or the lower, it changes the direction of the shadow. Maybe it goes all the way around, you know it's on the other side. Reflections, on the other hand, are constant. They never change. The only thing that makes a reflection different is where you are standing, because the reflection is going to always be in the same location. If you move, let's move back over to the original painting. The only reason I'm seeing that reflection there is because I'm standing right here at this particular angle. If I'm standing over there, it'll have a different look. If I'm standing over here, you may not even see it. If I'm standing right here, you may just see a little bit of it. Okay? So it's important to remember that reflections are constant. They never change. It's where you're standing at that makes it look like it's changed. So that's important to remember. I'm going to just use an example of a large body of water here. Okay? And by the way, I might mention something to you. But I just see so many things that I want to show you when we talk about this stuff. When you talk about keeping something flat and parallel and so it doesn't look like it's going to fall off the canvas, whenever you're doing a body of water and you want to put reflections in, a lot of people make their water puddles round, but I want you to notice something. Every time you change direction in a water, always make these little peninsulas. And every time you change direction, see, it's a little bit more of a parallel stroke with the top and bottom of your canvas. That's what makes it look flat. Okay? You have to have parallel lines in order for something to look flat. Okay, that's very, very important. So every time you change direction, you don't go like this, you go like this and create parallel lines, okay? Just a little food for thought. Don't go away. Jerry will be right back.
Now you can learn the artist skills in the privacy of your home on video cassette tape. Jerry Yarnell, a renowned landscape and wildlife artist, has been instructing over 20 years with an easy-to-follow method. Learn the usage of the acrylic medium at your speed and in your spare time, and review specific highlights at the touch of a button. Get started now. Call 1-800-822-1970 and order your beginner's lesson today for $24.95. Your satisfaction is guaranteed. Call 1-800-822-1970.
Which of these leading cough medicines do you...
Oh, that's easy.
Oh,
This looks really different.
This other one's so runny.
It's watery.
Oh, this coat's better.
Is this a trick?
That colored water?
This would feel good going down.
Looks like serious medicine. What is it?
New Vicks 44.
New?
It coats even better than before. Better than the other leading syrup. It contains maximum strength cough relief, and people with a cough prefer it.
Well, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
New Vicks 44, the one more people prefer.
A woman's hands. Hands that have the power to create, to nourish, and to protect. Hands that in one soothing motion also have the power to comfort.
Vicks Vapor Rub Greaseless Cream. It gives you the power to relieve coughs and stuffy noses.
So that the hands that comfort can finally let go.
Vicks Vapor Rub. Cold relief in the palm of your hand.
Another reason to switch from this freeze-dried to dark, rich Folgers crystals. Folgers looks more like dark, rich ground roast. It's fresh brewed coffee made into crystals. Folgers crystals. See the difference in an instant. Yet another reason to switch from this freeze-dried to dark, rich Folgers crystals. Folgers looks more like dark, rich ground roast coffee, but the freeze-dried costs about $1 more. Folgers crystals. Pocket the difference in an instant.
The city never sleeps. When we go home, the professional cleaners go to work with their Pro Strength cleaning formulas, like Pro 409 Spray Cleaner. Super concentrated for the toughest cleaning jobs. To clean like a pro, get Pro 409.
You're looking very nice, but I see you in blue with a little extra sizzle. Bird's Eye, the fresh look for vegetables.
All right, we'll use a simple subject just because I want you to understand it, and then you can go into more complicated things like trees and buildings like that, painting or whatever. But say we have a fence post right on the water's edge, okay? We got one there, we got one here that's kind of leaning, and they're going to go back into the distance now. Okay. The first post is always going to be reflected the same. I mean, it's identical. There's no change. That's why I'm saying reflections are consistent. This post is kind of straight up and down, so it will reflect itself in that same manner. But how do you know how big the reflection is? Well, again, depending on where you're standing has a lot to do with that, because if you're up high or down low may make more reflection showing. Well, there's a gym you can follow and be fairly safe in, because most of us when we're painting a painting are standing at a vantage point where our eye level is about at the middle of the painting. The way you determine how long a shadow is, you take your finger and you measure it, you put the reflection, you put start right at the bottom of the object. There's a little dot right there. That's how long that particular reflection would be. All right? Same thing with this one. Let's go like this. This little dot right there. But now this one's angled to the right, so it angles to the right in the water. Now this is the first major mistake people make. Generally speaking, when I say they think the reflection goes the opposite direction, well, it's an optical illusion. It's not going the opposite direction. It just seems like it is. If something leans to the right in your painting, it's going to lean to the right in the water. Just that simple. Now, as you go back into the distance away from the water, you're going to have reflections that aren't as long, because part of that reflection is being cut off by whatever space is on the ground. For instance, this particular one, now see, look what we do here. We measure the height of it. We go to the bottom of the object, not to the edge of the water. Now, I've seen so many people make that mistake. Don't go to the edge of the water. You go to the bottom of your object, okay? So you take the length of it, go there. There's where it is, and that's how long you know to make it. That way you've got it correct. Now, see, the next one's a little further back, a little more space. Got the height of it. There. Little dot. There's that one. This one, let's see, it may not even be seen. Oh, we are going to see it. A little bit. So your reflections are exactly the length, basically, of your object, eliminating any space that's between that and the water. Okay? That's how you do it. And remember, reflections lean the same way in the water as they do above the water. Okay? Now, the thing about reflections that's important to understand is that they are always less intense in color than the object that they are reflecting. All right, let's go back over to the original painting, and I'll make a real good example of that. Just so you'll know, when we paint these paintings for the program or in some of our instructional videos, it's real difficult to throw all this stuff in when we're painting. So as I paint, you kind of do what I tell you. You may not understand, so I want you to understand. When I painted this reflection, I painted it a subtler color, and when I dry brush some of this bluish water over it, see how much less intense a color it is than this one? That's because that's the way it is, because when you have ripples in the water or any kind of movement, it's going to distort the image and make it look less intense in color. Well, who knows why? There's lots of stuff in there. There's debris in the water, there's all kinds of things, but it's always less intense in color in 99% of the cases. Now, in some cases, when you have a crystal clear, perfectly mirror smooth lake, sometimes your reflections will appear to be almost more intense, but that's very, very rare, and it's only on certain occasions. So, you got to play it by ear. Now, let me very quickly show you how you establish to do something else. Like, say this building, draw this building here. Now, I've had more people try to reflect something in the water, like a building or a tree or something, and they get so confused. But let me show you some simple tricks. Number one, the principle is identical. There's nothing changes. You do it just like you did your fence posts, okay? Measure the height of the highest peak. Go right directly below it. Go right to the, now don't go to the edge of the water, remember, go to the bottom of the object. The height is here. Go right to the front. Put a little dot. Okay? Measure the height of your walls. Go right to the bottom of the building. Put a little dot. Here's one here. Put a little dot. Now it's just connect the dots, basically. Except for right here, if that's a little lean-to, that one will be here. Okay? Now you connect the dots. And you've got the basic shape of the house, just like that. That's such a simple formula. Same thing now on the back. You go here, go to the bottom of it, got a dot. Now you do is connect the dots. You would do the same thing here if you really got in trouble, okay? And there you have your house reflected just by simple measuring techniques. Well, doggone it, we're out of time again, and this is going to wrap up our real short, brief instruction on composition, design, and reflections and shadows. We didn't get a chance to do perspective, but we're going to cover perspective in one of our programs real soon, so just keep watching and you'll be able to see it. If you enjoy our programs, please call your local station and let them know how much you enjoy it. That'll keep us on. Keep painting, keep drawing, keep sketching, stay inspired. God bless you, and we're going to see you on the inspiration of painting.
Jerry Yarnell proudly uses the Grumbacher paints and brushes. Today's program and many other programs, including beginner's lessons, are available on video cassette tapes. If you would like to order a tape of today's lesson in its entirety, call 1-800-822-1970.
And she's the president of Renita Corporation. Welcome, Glenda.
Thank you, Sue. It's a pleasure to be here.